Okay, January 21st. Take two, because I just told the story and I left out a part, so now I have to tell it again. Okay, so this is a testimony story that happened in around 1990, 91. Actually, the winter of 90, or something like that, 90, 91. And this is about these drones. These drones that, what are they? Are they UFOs? Are they alive? Are they just machines? Are they holograms? Are they, shape-shifting items or whatever? So on this channel, I have told some stories of my past concerning the aliens and the abductions and the My Labs, all this. I've taken a lot of those videos down for various reasons, or I privatize. Like, I leave videos up lately, and then I go look at later on to see if I want to either delete the video or leave it up forever or privatize it and keep it, because the phenomena of recording social media and YouTube keeping everything that you ever record on your channel. There's no time thing. So if you say something last year and then you change your mind, well, people are, you better go catch up with what you said last year if it's still online. Anyway, so it's a weird phenomenon. So I do take videos down that I think got their share of views, and, I don't leave them up there. But this one I might leave up there because it's testimony, and I've never told a story before. Okay. So in 1990, I had just moved myself up to Yelm, Washington to attend the Ramtha School. So I was what you call a beginning student. I was renting a little camper shell on some 10 acres of some friends, right off of Smith Prairie Road along Choctaw Lane. If those of you know the Bald Hills outside of Yelm, you know where I'm talking about. And their property was right along Choctaw Lane, which is full of holes in water. So no cars could go on that road more than 5 miles an hour because it was so full of holes. And I mention that because the camper shell was located parked right kind of on the property, but there was like a barbed wire fence between the camper shell and the road itself, and then a row of trees. So if you were driving down Choctaw Lane at 2 miles an hour, you might see the camper shell through the trees, but I, in the camper shell, could hear and see the cars going by in lurid detail, especially if they were going slow, which they always were. So that's just the part of it. So one day, I go out to the camper shell, and I felt like I had to lay down and take a nap. I did, and I closed my eyes. Now, already I had had experiences of seeing everything, invisible with my eyes closed. And so this is what happened that day. I lay down, closed my eyes, and in a lucid dream state, I thought I was looking out the window and seeing this swarm in the sky coming at us on the property of these. See, I didn't have the word drone in my vocabulary back then. I'd never seen a drone. But these were kind of like drone size, and they seemed like they were mechanical insects that actually had consciousness to each one of them, but they were traveling kind of like a bird, but they were definitely in this alien kind of drone, mechanical fucking insect-like things that they were coming, so it was scary. So I stood up in what I thought was regular life to go run to the house to tell the people in the house, look outside. The house was like 100 feet away, maybe 200 feet. But as I stood up to call to them, I suddenly came to and was lying there taking a nap. Now here's the interesting part, was that the minute I came to, I hear a pickup truck coming down Choctaw Lane, and it was very slow. The timing of this is very important, because as this truck was coming down, it was summer, so the guy's windows were rolled down. And I could hear the driver kind of, in a scolding voice toward the passenger, and then I would hear these thuds. And this car is just, zigzagging over the different Choctaw holes, going right past my camper, and the driver was beating up the kid in the front seat. I could see through the trees that it's like, okay, you're driving your kid, you get mad. So he was like punching this kid, and the child wasn't I mean, he was like a teenager or something. And I knew these neighbors. I kind of knew their truck. But here I'm witnessing this driver kind of beating on the fucking kid in the front seat. Right when those UFO droney things had gone by. So that was pretty weird because right away in my mind I'm like, oh, well, there's some bad energy and the humans on the ground are picking up on it and being mean. Well, I don't know if that's the case, but nevertheless there was that. Okay, but that's not the best part of the story. So that happened. Well, it wasn't very long after that, maybe a month or two. And I was a student in the school, so every now and then back then, Jay-Z Knight would call a special session at the ranch, and this was a Tuesday night. The word would go out by telephone or word of mouth locally because it wasn't advertised for people to fly into Yelm to go to the event. It was just Jay-Z wanted to talk to all of us that lived nearby. And it was unusual for her to come out and call an event, so we wanted to go see what she had to say. This wasn't Ramtha. So I went to that and sat up by the stage on the side there and listened to what she had to say, and she came out and told us the following story. She said that she called us together because one of the students in the school was a chiropractor whose name I forget, but people knew him. I knew who he was, I knew his wife, and he had a family, and so she said that he came to her to tell her what happened. His property, they had like some acreage and a house and an orchard, was located along Smith Prairie Road, which goes in a circle, goes in a loop. Technically, his location was not even a mile from me, from where I was living there. So we were neighbors with this chiropractor, but so at the time I didn't know that he lived there. So Jay-Z told us that the chiropractor told her the story. And the chiropractor told her that they were sleeping one night, and at 1 a.m. was a knock on the door. And, okay, so there was a knock on the door, and they answered, and there was a man there, a logger guy, and he was really freaked out. He said, I'm sorry to bother you, but this crazy thing just happened. They let him in the house. He didn't know they were Ramtha students because, of course, this guy was just getting ready to tell him an impossible story. He couldn't have picked a better person to knock on. But the man said he had been across the road in the big empty field there where they had clear cut. And he was out there. He had gone out early in the day with his chainsaw to cut wood. And he told them that as he's out there cutting wood, he looks up in the sky and he sees a swarm of the same things described like what I saw coming at him. He didn't know what the fuck they were. He got terrified, so he ducked his body underneath a big log to hide. And the next thing he knew, he came to, and here it was nighttime, 1 o'clock. So the guy was freaked out. He didn't know anything about aliens or nothing. He just saw these drones. And when Jay-Z was telling us this story, I'm sitting here like, well, I guess I saw them too. I didn't say anything to anybody. I just felt glad that I saw something that was really there, but it was invisible to me, which is interesting because if any of these drones are any that we see now or anything like those things were, and they can make themselves invisible and stuff like that. But this logger guy had seen them, and then he had all this missing time. Trippy, right? So then what I remember about that evening is that Jay-Z told us that she was aware there was like a base or a tunnel that went underneath downtown Yelm past her, and she mentions Zeta Reticuli. And back in those days, I had become aware that I had been having joint abductions with Zeta Reticuli type creatures. And anyway, it's a long story. But so she said, yeah, it's a Zeta thing. Now, she said she didn't like them. She said, if you have a gun, she said, I'd have a gun, I'd shoot him if I see him coming around me. So there was a thing there with certain of these entities not, being nice and love and light. And there were more instances that happened with me in those days too that showed me that. But anyway, I just thought I'd mention that story because it must have happened. And so now, and I'm telling it now because of all this drone stuff, so we can wonder if any of those crews that I saw are part of what's happening now, and that's, I don't know. Anyway, I'm just saying. I just thought I'd tell the story that in 1990, I seen a fleet of what looked like insects, but they were like mechanical, but they had a consciousness. And what size were they, you ask? Kind of like, you know, the guy in the video, he knocked one down that was coming at him from the field, and not as big as a car or anything. But, and like I say, back then I didn't know what a drone was. And so when a few years ago when I started seeing drones and I knew a guy that made them, like, yeah, that's what they look like, just six-legged, spidery looking flying things, you know. So anyway, okay, I told that story, that's enough, and just for the record. Okay, thank you, bye.